Those are perfect.
Only let's do PDF.
So those are fine. Actually, if you have those network photocopiers, I often forget to mention them. Those are a great option. Yeah, yeah. So those they'll usually either convert to PDF or TIFF. Either format, you can just simply open them in Kurzweil, and it will actually convert them for you. You don't have to do anything special. That's me. Yes. I'm sorry. Is that my microphone giving feedback? I'm not touching anything, I swear.
Is your heart beating?
It is now. I don't know whether it's really. Okay. Good. Your question. So if we were talking about scanning in for all students to use, for sure, you probably would be. If we're talking about the types of students that would more likely be in Tier 3, well, actually, I can't speak to Canadian copyright laws. I can't really speak to them in America either. What we generally, because I'm not a copyright lawyer. But my point in saying that is simply that what our general advice to schools is, if you are already buying this curriculum from publisher X, is first of all go to the publisher X and explain to them that what you want is an accessible format. And in some cases you'll get it. And in those cases where you don't, you say, well, one of the things that we're going to have to do then is to be able to scan this in. And with the tens of thousands of schools that there are in North America using Kurzweil, I've never had anyone come to me and say the publisher said no. So, sorry, you have a question? Now, did I hear someone say that they had heard? Did you say you had an issue of it being refused?
The publisher were trying to get some stuff, and they said no.
Just flat out no. No negotiation, nothing. Wow. Are we allowed to name the publisher? You wouldn't want to, okay.
Nobody moves faster when you put your purchase order money. You can say, we're not going to adopt that textbook. And go to another publisher, one that's going to make their stuff accessible.
Yeah, because I think, get your curriculum people. Are your curriculum people helping you, or are you curriculum? Are you the ones going to ask?
No, I was working with the French immersion textbooks for the students with the French immersion program, and it's very difficult to get access to the public teachers.
Okay. Well, I think to the lady's point, and obviously there's no guarantee that's going to work either. But it would seem to me that probably getting your curriculum people involved, if they're not already, to see whether there's any leverage they can provide would be helpful.
Just a comment on your comment, I will set in students as resource libraries online, alternative formats, and French immersion materials are much harder to get than English-speaking material, even for the same French.
So, if I can just make a point. So we had a note just passed to me from someone that's watching the stream to say that they are unable to hear much of anything that you're all saying. So to the extent you can kind of speak up a little louder, I'll try and repeat questions where I can so people that are watching the stream can know what we're speaking about. But we're speaking about French immersion curriculum being difficult to obtain permission on is the bottom line, right? Yes?
In Ontario,
Okay. Are you saying that it's not presently?
Not now. I spoke to Crick, and that's because you have to go through the Crick switch box.
Okay.
So I don't know if there's a way. There is a solution to that. Is there?
So well, again, just for the folks kind of watching the stream, so the issue is that here in Ontario, we have a kind of province-wide license of Clicker 5 that it does not or is not compatible with IntelliKeys, and lady to my right is saying that you think there's a solution. What's that?
If you have your IntelliKey set to overlays mode, and
So-
if you have your switch presets programmed for F7 and F8, it works.
So IntelliKey set to overlay mode and switch settings set to F7 and F8? Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any other experiences with the kind of the scanning side of things? Okay. So we were speaking before about the the iPod, right? So how ubiquitous are they? I'm just thinking just right now about kind of MP3 file creation. So this ability to kind of have any material opened inside Kurzweil in this case, and being able to make an audio recording of that material so that a student, maybe they just kind of, got their iPod plugged in, they're on the way home, or they're just at home, don't have access to the technology that maybe you've got in school. Are any of you doing that now? Is that anything that someone's trying? You're trying that now?
Students are also making notes, study notes, and then in text form and converting them to MP3 so they can listen.
Okay, that's a great strategy. So what we're hearing then is that students in this district are actually adding text notes into Kurzweil. There are a number of different ways of adding a text note, and then when they're making the recording, simply making sure Kurzweil's capturing those notes as well, so they get to hear them along with the scanned material. So that's good. Anybody else? Anything else to share? Thinking about just kind of audio files right now. All right. Yes.
Just one. Tell me if you can hear this. Can you hear me? Okay, on your recording with this volume. Okay. I want to get back to the issue just for a second about this, the issue of digitizing books so that they can be accessible for folks. I think you all are big advocates of universal design and helping people to be able to access what they need to access and what they can access. The issue is going to come down to some balance of the need for authors and publishers to make money from their intellectual property versus, unfortunately, access issues. And so how to define access in a way that plays on the righteous principles that people should have who are producing intellectual property is, I think, where the challenge is going to be. And if it's confronted too hard, there's going to be pushback at an international copyright level that I think that most people in this room are not going to like. So it's got to be confronted with great sophistication along with the publishing industry and the authors in order to make this work in time. So I just wanted to be sure that everyone who's watching this anywhere is aware of this issue that is a real looming issue related to how this all might work. Mm-hmm. So.
And I think to that point, Steve, I mean, one of the things that we've also been telling schools is if you've already purchased the book for the student, but they just can't access the book you've purchased, that probably puts you in a slightly stronger position, I think, than if you don't do it.
Yeah.
Right, you were going to say?
That's absolutely the criteria that's being used in our system. If you own the physical copy of the book, then you are entitled to create an electronic version of that text.
Okay.
So we do system purchases of resources.
Yes.
We also ask for the electronic versions of those system purchases because we have purchased the resource. We're asking for the electronic version as well.
That's great. Yeah, excellent. Any other things to share? I know I'm kind of going backwards here, but embedded supports for comprehension or instruction. I have a question. So for any of you that either now or have in the past been in the classroom and have instructed students, what are your approaches to instruction? How are you actually letting the students know what they need to do today? What methods are you using? So imagine yourself, you're in front of the class, you've got to tell them what they need to do today. How are you doing that? ESP doesn't work, I hear. Yes? So you're taking instructions and showing them in written form on a screen or something?
If they're doing math and they're playing with manipulatives, we take those to student work and put it out to show everyone.
Okay, so you might, would it be fair to say then that you might use something like one of these kind of electronic overheads? So if you were showing a manipulative, for example, as you were describing? Okay. What's anyone doing anything different? How else is someone instructing students in your district? Come now, there must be other ways than showing things through a screen. What about you?
Well, verbally as well as visually as possible.
So
like a global diagram.
Okay, so verbally and visually, sometimes using diagrams on the screen. Okay, perfect. Anything else? Yes?
I'd like to leave instructions where the students can see them throughout the lesson, so they can refer back and refer back and refer back.
So leave the instructions where the students can see them throughout the lesson. So in that case, then, would that invariably be maybe on the board?
It would be separate to the technology, so you might start your lesson with the technology, but somewhere on a whiteboard or on some written mainframe pad, have those instructions so they can continuously refer back. Because if the technology disappears,
Yes.
so the difference with something like Kurzweil is you can embed those notes on the page, and then they can continuously refer back.
Right. Right, and what's your name, sorry? Janet. So Janet's point, for those of you who didn't hear it, first of all, was just, separate from the technology, was having the instructions visible and available to the students at all times. And you're segueing the direction that I would like to go, and that's simply to say that what you can do with a technology like Kurzweil 3000, you can either use text notes, so footnotes, sticky notes, bubble notes, to actually add instruction or questions directly inside the document. And these are notes that either open because you click on them, or they open automatically because you've programmed them that way to open at the end of, or the beginning of, or during the reading of text. But there's also the voice note. So if you actually wanted to record your own voice, speaking to the student and helping them, you can do so. Actually, it's a great strategy, even working with ELL populations, certainly something I get into a lot in some districts, where they have transient students that have just come in from a different country and their first language is not English. And guess what? We're going to talk about hockey today, or we're going to talk about skateboarding, or whatever it might be, but it might be something that they've never experienced before in their life. How much background knowledge do you think they're going to have about that topic if they've come from a country where they don't play that sport, don't have skateboards? So using a voice note is a great way of using, hopefully, a native speaker of the language that student speaks to speak to them and explain some of the key vocabulary and what hockey's all about, why everyone got so excited last night in the bar at the hotel, Steve included. Because then at least when the student then goes to listen to the text, when they come to those key vocabulary words, it's going to have more meaning to them, right? So it's a good strategy for these types of students. Yes, please.
What help do you give to teachers? And I think it's a very legitimate concern of in an integrated class where you'll have some gifted, regular, and you're challenging students. The teacher who genuinely wants to do this, but I mean, there's only so many hours in the day. So what advice or help can you give to allow them to do all that they need to do to meet the differentiated instruction? Because this is time-consuming,
Yes.
and necessary as it is. So what advice can you give them?
So it's a great question. So for anybody who's watching the stream that didn't hear it, so the question really is, first of all, I think just acknowledging just how challenging this is as educators, that you've got all these other things pushing and pulling at you from all sides, right? Not just on technology, but just the demands on you as an educator. How do you find time in the day or the night or the weekend or whatever it might be to just prepare curriculum in some format that can speak to a diversified audience? Because you've got, as you said, kids that, struggling students can be a whole litany of different types of kids. So your gifted students, your special ed students, your English language learners, those with learning disabilities, what have you. So I think the first thing I would say to you is when training is given in a program like Kurzweil, the objective is never